Welcome, everyone. I hope you have been enjoying these content-rich sessions so far. It is a true honor to introduce our next speaker, Adena Friedman, who shattered the glass ceiling by becoming the first woman CEO to lead a global exchange, Nasdaq. Adena became president and chief executive officer of Nasdaq on January 1st, 2017. She brings more than 20 years of industry leadership and expertise and has done a significant work in shaping Nasdaq's transformation journey and technology evolution in the company, and the operation spans across 6 continents. Prior to being the CEO, Adena served as president and chief operating officer throughout 2016 and has led significant growth and expansion with Nasdaq. However, one fun fact is Adena joined Nasdaq in 1993 as an intern. Adena, you are truly inspiring and an example of what is possible with hard work, persistence, and loyalty. Accompanying Adena on the fireside chat is my dear friend and mentor, Don Callahan. Don is the executive chairman of Time, an iconic media company, where he's leading a comprehensive digital transformation. Don also serves as executive partner at Bridge Growth Partners and serves on myriads of boards of Tata Consultancy Services, WEX Inc, Kore.ai, and Accedian. Prior to these roles, Don was also my boss at Citi, where he also served as Chief Administrative Officer and was Global Head of Operations and Technology. Welcome, Adena and Don, on TiEcon's grand stage.
Well, thank you, Minnie. Let me start off by, Adena, thanking you for taking time to talk to all of us. We know how precious your time is. I understand there's 33,000 entrepreneurs listening in to us, most of them biased towards technology one way or another. And it really tees up my first question for you, which I know that you believe that the key to lifting ideas into reality is capital formation and having the ability for entrepreneurs to have the capacity to take those ideas and somehow get access to that capital. How are you driving that, and how is Nasdaq driving that? You're known as being a pioneer in this particular area.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me here. And Don, it's great to have a chance to have a chat with you. I understand with 33,000 people, there's no pressure, so that's awesome. But in terms of Nasdaq's role, I think we actually turned 50 this year. And when we think about the history of Nasdaq and what we were born to do, we were really born to democratize capitalism, democratize the markets. And that's both in terms of capital formation and enabling more entrepreneurs to raise capital, as well as in terms of trading and certainly allowing the free flow of capital among investors. And one of the things we did way back at the very beginning of Nasdaq, which really uprooted the capital formation model, was to allow companies that had high growth characteristics and younger companies that were not yet profitable, but that clearly had excellent business prospects to come and access public investors. And now we flash forward 50 years, and we are one of the largest exchanges in the world. We have the 5 largest US-based companies in the world listed on Nasdaq, and all of them were companies that really were trying to transform commerce, transform the country, transform business, all with technology. So today, we really focus on, from a capital formation perspective, in 2 areas. One is with entrepreneurs. We have the Nasdaq Entrepreneur Center, where we offer free education to thousands of young entrepreneurs who are looking to launch businesses and grow their businesses, to help them really understand how to be successful as an entrepreneur. And that's something, really, it's a free service that we have to really give back and make sure that that next generation of entrepreneurs are ready to be, hopefully, one day a Nasdaq public company. And then in terms of from a business perspective, we have a very flexible way to come and tap the public markets and make your business accessible to public investors by IPOing with Nasdaq or doing a direct listing or through SPAC mergers. So there are multiple ways to come and get access to public investors today. So that is really the role that we play. And our purpose is to drive inclusive growth and prosperity. And we try to do that every single day.
That's so impressive. And I think there are even recent examples where what may have been seen as an old line tech company wants to come across as really leaning forward into the new tech revolution, and they're relisting on your exchange. Is that right?
Yes, and in fact, what's really interesting is, and I think you're referring to Honeywell, they're a technology company that really serves large industry, large manufacturing organizations, and what I say that they're the technology that powers the physical economy. And so they have been listed on New York for a very long time, but they chose to come and list on Nasdaq, and that announcement went out a little over a week ago, because they really see themselves as bringing the best of technology to the physical economy. And when they see themselves as that, they really do want to be part of the Nasdaq family of companies. And so we're very, very excited to welcome them in the next week or so to Nasdaq.
That's very exciting. And, it really brings to mind what I've heard you describe Nasdaq as a tech company. Is it a tech company? And how so? And if I can ask a second question at the same time, you and I have talked about the cloud, and you're not just talking about the cloud anymore. You're all in, it seems like. So can you answer both sides of that question?
Sure.
If you would.
Sure. Well, Nasdaq is a technology company that serves the capital markets, and we do that both by operating our own markets, but then also we provide the technology that powers 130 other markets around the world. We also have core technology that really, what I would call defensive technologies, to power market surveillance and trade surveillance capabilities for the broker-dealer community and the exchange community around the world. And then we also now have broader anti-financial crime technology that serves the broader banks and brokerage community in the United States and Canada today, but we have great global ambitions around that as well. And then we also are a scaled index provider as well as a data analytics provider that's to serve the buy side. So we've been able to take our core foundation as an exchange operator and branch out over the last 50 years to become a scale technology provider to the broader industry across corporates with governance solutions and IR solutions, the buy side with our analytics and index businesses, and then also with the broader broker-dealer community and exchange community with our technology. And so as we look at, well, what's going to happen in the next 10 years in our industry or 20 years in our industry, how can we make sure that we are leaning in and having the best technology available to serve the exchange business and to serve the broader capital markets industry? And our view is cloud is absolutely foundational to the future of our industry. So pretty much what you've been seeing over the last 10 years, starting for us in 2008, we started moving what I would say the non-real-time activities that are included in being an exchange to a cloud-based service. So our surveillance technology is available in the cloud now. We actually just launched our first cloud-based market surveillance technology. So we're taking it off, from an on-prem to a cloud-based solution. All of our data analytics are now available all through the cloud and are cloud native. The anti-financial crime technology I mentioned is all cloud native. And so as we're basically moving more and more of those off non-real-time activities to the cloud. Okay, well, flash forward now to 2020, and we launched a real-time data solution in the cloud. So it's a cloud-native data delivery service. And over the next several years, we are building out and deploying a cloud-native exchange technology all the way to the match as essentially as a cloud native offering, both to other exchanges as well as to ourselves. And we would expect over the next 5 to 7 years that we see a very significant transition of the exchanges to the cloud.
That's so impressive. Many people talking about the cloud, but it's clear you're all in on all parts of your business. And what about artificial intelligence? I heard you mention financial crimes, and I think have an idea that you're using AI to start thinking about that topic in a different way than others have been able to accomplish.
Well, first of all, Don, that was actually one of the first conversations you and I ever had. I don't know if you remember that, but when I first met you, I came in to talk to you about our trade surveillance solution. And you started asking me a lot of questions about, well, how do we leverage AI to be much smarter in rooting out manipulation in the markets? And we were just launching into, this was several years ago, we were just launching into building out our machine learning team to be able to deploy that into our trade surveillance technology. So I asked you a bunch of questions, and of course, you asked me a bunch of questions back that we weren't ready yet to be able to answer, but it would really actually, honestly, served as a foundation for us to say, how do we prioritize our machine learning activities and our machine learning development to be the best in class for the defensive technologies that we have, both the market surveillance, trade surveillance, and now anti-financial crime. And now today, we actually have AI embedded in our market surveillance solution. We're working with broker-dealers to roll out the first versions of AI into our trade surveillance solution. And the purpose of that is to lessen the number of false positives and make the teams much more efficient in finding true manipulation in the markets. Also, finding new forms of manipulation that we may not be able to see with the human eye, or we may not be able to identify as quickly, and finding those new patterns that allow us to be even better at protecting the markets and protecting the overall financial industry. And then in the anti-financial crime side, which is more fraud detection, AML detection, is really that's actually been embedded in everything that platform has done from the very beginning, is using machine learning algorithms to really find and network effect to find that fraud and make sure that we take it out of the system.
Wow, it's very impressive. And yes, I do remember the conversation. I even remember which room we were having, a small conference room. And I just remember how excited I was. Yeah, but it's a small conference room, but a very big topic. And the fact that you took the ideas and went back and turned them into reality is just so impressive. Let me shift away from technology for a second and bring up a very hot topic that I'm personally committed to, which is this concept around diversity and diversity on boards. And you've been in the news really, I guess, as of December 2020, when you filed a proposal to the SEC that the listing requirements be changed so that boards have to be very transparent about whether they're really embracing diversity in all areas. And I guess you use the term encouraging broad diversity there across these underrepresented minorities, including the LGBTQ area. Can you tell us what is your thinking behind this, and what kind of results do you think you are seeing at this stage?
Sure. Well, over the last decade, what we've been seeing is a good development, I would say a starting of development around focusing in on, is there a fundamental benefit to having more diversity on boards? And there have been an increasing number of studies done that try to measure out, is there correlation between either better risk controls or better financial performance with more diversity on a board? And what we've seen is there are an increasing number of studies that are demonstrating that correlation. Some really focus in on better risk controls, and some focus in on better financial performance, but we are seeing an increasing body of work around that. The second thing is, over many years, we've been asked by investors, large pension funds, asset managers, asset owners, to see whether should our listing standards be modified to encourage more transparency and encourage more diversity on boards. And so those two things have been kind of coming together. And over in 2020, Nasdaq launched an internal initiative to evaluate the research and evaluate the feedback from investors to come out with a board diversity proposal that we announced at the beginning of December last year. Right now, it will sit at the SEC, and the SEC ultimately will decide if they approve this as part of our listing rules. But what it basically focuses on, first and foremost, is on disclosure. Any company that's listed on Nasdaq would have to disclose the composition of their boards from a diversity perspective based on self-disclosed information by the board members and anonymized by the board members. So that it basically is a standard table that every board, that every company would fill out based on self-identified information from the board members. That then allows us to really start to measure progress. It allows investors to be able to make more informed investment decisions. The second part of the proposal is for us to encourage more diversity on boards by setting a goal of having at least 2 diverse board members, at least 1 woman and 1 other underrepresented minority or LGBTQ member on your board within the next 4 years. And on the back of that, if you're not able to meet that standard, then to explain to investors why you don't want to meet, or you're not able to, or maybe you're in transition, maybe you're still looking for the right board members, but just to give an explanation. And that we really do hope that will encourage that conversation, that dialogue within the boards to understand why is diversity important, what are the benefits, and how can they continue to focus on diversity as an important part of investor protection.
Yeah, well, what a great idea, and I love the fact that you're asking for the boards to comment back. It'd be very interesting to read some of what those replies might be. Have you seen any so far?
Well, this hasn't yet been approved by the SEC, and
Right.
And there's a fairly long implementation period because honestly, we want the companies to do this in a very natural way through normal board turnover, and also to have the time to be able to seek out really great qualified candidates. The other thing we have done is we've partnered with a third party to provide a free service to our listed companies to help them find those great qualified candidates that have more diverse characteristics.
Wow, that's such an elegant way in which you're doing this, and I think everyone's very appreciative. Let me switch back to technology if I can for a second here.
Sure.
And one of the other conversations you and I had a few years back, different location, I believe it was down south.
I think it was.
We both have location memory. It was around blockchain and really where these digital assets, were they going to take off? Are they real? Is it going to upend the markets as we know it? A lot has happened in the last 2 years. What's your thinking going forward?
Yes, it's so interesting. A lot has happened in the last 2 years. So I think that when we talked about it 2 years ago, it was still just the beginning of that product life cycle. We had a lot of conversations. The blockchain was really starting to become the conversation of the day. But there were really, I would say, really more proofs of concept starting to develop in the industry to support whether or not blockchain could create more efficiency. And that was one of our key conversations, more so around blockchain than crypto specifically, but could blockchain create more efficiencies in the system and lower settlement, squeeze settlement times at lower risk in the system, and make it so it's more elegant from a pre-trade issuance all the way through to settlement. And there were a lot of really interesting proofs of concept going on. At the same time, the cryptocurrency markets were just starting to take off. So now we look at it today, we have a lot of cryptocurrency markets out there, different coins having been developed. You're starting to see some institutions coming in around Ether and Bitcoin and some of the more mature currencies to say, could this become a store of value? Could this become a way to exchange currency for goods, and in a more, I would say, in a more streamlined or a more mainstream way? And so a lot has happened in the last 2 years. In terms of blockchain as a technology, we are seeing new markets be born native on the blockchain whether it's fractional real estate markets. We've got some interesting developments in the healthcare space. We've got some others that are going on, other asset classes that really have the opportunity to launch a market from the very beginning in a tokenized way. And of course, there's the NFTs as well that have developed. So I see this as a trend that's here to stay. I think it's just a matter of that natural maturation of a product life cycle as to which of the blockchain technologies will be most effective and most streamlined and frankly most elegant in solving big industry problems and creating opportunities for new asset classes. And then of course on the crypto space, I think that you are starting to see more institutions get involved in the space. Will it ultimately move from being a speculative asset class to being a true asset class of commerce? I think we all will look forward to seeing what the next 5 years have to hold in that regard.
Yeah, no, it's such a fascinating area. I'm leading a search for a new CFO at Time, and on the job description, first time I've ever seen it, we put in has to be familiar with crypto, has to be familiar with NFTs, and has to, it's things I never even a year ago would have thought we'd be putting in as a requirement for a CFO. I know you've been a CFO. But this probably wasn't on your radar back when you were at Carlyle.
It was definitely not on the job description. So I think that you're right. And I was a CFO from 2009 to 2014. And when I got back to Nasdaq, very first week back at Nasdaq, we had our senior management offsite. And the very first topic was, what is the blockchain? And what is Bitcoin? So we were just starting to educate ourselves back then as to what this new technology was going to bring. It's fascinating to see how quickly it's developed.
Wow, that is a great comment. For those of you listening, the entrepreneurs out there, one of the things I hope you take away from Adina is she'll catch on to what is going to be hot and just invest time, capital, and labor behind it till she figures out. It's just so impressive. It brings me, Adina, to a personal question, if I can. And Minnie, I know we're heading towards the bottom of the hour, but if you'd like anyone from the audience to jump in with a question, feel free after I ask this one. And so on the personal side, this really comes down to pivot. You left Nasdaq, you took a flyer and went to Carlyle, a fascinating private equity firm, and then you pivoted back. So what advice can you give the audience here about making pivots and how important are they in defining a career?
Great question. And I would say this, it was a very hard decision to leave Nasdaq, but I was kind of a bit of an inflection point for me, both personally and from a career perspective. So I was the CFO of Nasdaq at the time and really enjoying the job, but I had the opportunity to go to Carlyle to help them go public, which is kind of a CFO's dream to be able to take a company into the public markets. And I also recognized that it gave me an enormous opportunity to learn a different part of the industry, to be a part of the asset management industry, which my father was in the asset management industry, my brother's in the asset management industry. So I was very excited to be able to go into that part of the industry. And then also all the education I got in taking a company public was just amazing, and building out a really, I think, a robust finance function for a public company there. So I was very excited to be a part of that journey. And so I had a great job. So why did I leave? And it was really to have a chance to really learn and to expand my horizons, expand my understanding of the industry, and to accomplish something really, really special. Now, I actually expected to stay there for the rest of my career, but the fact is that Nasdaq came back with an amazing opportunity to become president of Nasdaq, run most of the business units, and then all of the business units, with the hope that I came back with the hope that I would have a chance to become a CEO. And so that was a great pivot back. It was to something I knew well, but now I had all these new skills. I had a deeper understanding of what it means to go public and what it requires. I had a much deeper understanding of the industry, and I was able to bring all that back into Nasdaq. So for me, it's a matter of running to opportunities. Don't run away from something, run to something really interesting, and I think you'll find that your career goes a lot further.
It seems like you just keep your learning curve and as steep a vertical as you can possibly find.
Absolutely, you are 100% right about that, Don. That to me, I've had a really great opportunity. I mean, market structure, just want to say, market structure is an eternal learning curve. Never gets boring. It's fascinating every day.
Oh, that's great. Hey, Minnie, we have 3 more minutes. Do you want to ask a question from your end or from the audience?
I don't see any questions, Don,
Okay.
so we can continue with.
Then let me ask the last one. And if I know it's a big question for 3 minutes, Adina, but you talk about learning. This pandemic, as we saw from the opening video, and what's going on in India, and I'm very close to what's going on in India. It's heartbreaking. So it's anything but over. But what have you learned so far that is going to change the way in which you personally operate or the business operates?
I can say that this has been, an incredibly challenging year, but also a very rewarding year in terms of the connection. It's so interesting. We all had to go home, and in about 2 days, we closed all of our offices around the world. And luckily, we had spent 10 years preparing for that moment in terms of digitizing all of our technology operations, our market surveillance capabilities, all of our jobs. We were able to move everyone to a remote environment in a very quick period of time. So 10 years of preparation, in 2 days we had to execute it. And so that, number one, was just amazing to me, honestly, that so much of the financial industry was able to move into a remote environment so quickly. But then from that moment on, you think, gosh, you're going to lose connection with your employees. How do we make sure we stay together? And again, technology came in. So whether it was Zoom or WebEx, or whether it was the Teams, Microsoft Teams, or Slack, those types of tools, it was just an Atlassian with Jira. I mean, all of these amazing tools that allow us to continue to connect. And then it was much more about getting to know each other on a personal level that we never allowed ourselves to do before. I've always been home Adina, work Adina. And now there was just Adina. So being more connected with our employees in a different way and allowing that frankly vulnerability to be there and present, but then using it to really connect and build strength as a company has been one of the things I've learned the most over the last year. Now we have to face the reality of, okay, now how do we reconnect physically? How do we make sure we reintroduce that while also providing more flexibility? And that's the next big journey we'll take over the next several months.
That's just terrific. Why don't we leave it there since we're right on time? And I'll just ask in advance if I can come around when we're back in the offices and grab a cup of coffee with you. I think
Absolutely.
You're literally around the corner.
That would be terrific. That would be great.
I look forward to it. We can't thank you enough for sharing your insights today. I learned a lot, and I'm sure the audience did as well. Thank you again. And thank you, Minnie. Over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Minnie. Thank you, Don.
Thank you. Thank you all, Adina and Don. It was such an inspiring session. Adina, you're such a great role model for the women and what the women of today can aspire. Also, your focus on diversifying Nasdaq into a technology company with focus on growth opportunities is something that our audience of entrepreneurs can totally relate to. And thank you, Dawn, for bringing this dialogue to life.